Hey everybody, welcome to another launch day review here on Guerrilla Miniature Games. I'm here with Chris from Lords of War.
Hey guys, how's it going?
And we are checking out Age of Sigmar, the big hardcover rulebook. Now, a couple of caveat emptors before we get started, guys. First things first, this video is going to be about what's in the book, not what's not in the book. And what's not in the book, which I'm just gonna get right in the open right now, is any way of picking your army. So if you guys are pouring through this thing and trying to find army composition rules, some type of agreed format for playing, anything like that, that's not in there. There's no, telling you what you have to pick your army. Now, what is in here is 8 battle plans, some special rules for the Realm of Fire and the Realm of Life, so Akshi and Garan, and then a ton of background on the invasion, the initial layer of invasion of the Realm of Akshi, and then of course the Realm of Garan afterwards by 2 separate storm hosts. So what you're going to hear a lot of in this review is us talking about the story, where Age of Sigmar is going with the world, what we thought was really interesting and new about the book, and then what we thought was really interesting and new about the rules that are in the book. Because there's also 3 sets of war scrolls. There's a set of war scrolls for the storm host. And this is just indicative of the storm hosts in the initial invasion. So these are just the models that took part in that campaign action, basically. For the Khorne Goreblades, I believe they're called. Was it the Gore? The Bloodbound. Yeah, the Khorne Bloodbound. And their rules, which are pretty much an identical reprint of the rules that are in the starter set. Yep. Age of Sigmar starter set. Yep. And then some tree spirit stuff. So the Realm of Garan and the Sylvaneth, which are basically all of the tree monsters. So the tree lords, which were called tree mans previously, the branch wraith, the dryads, and actually the citadel wood.
Yeah, it's a war scroll.
It's a war scroll. You can think of wood as a war scroll, yeah. And there's a bunch of really cool reasons to do so too. So getting that aside, that's our caveat emptor. There's not going to be a whole bunch of discussion of what's not in the book, because that seems to, we'll discuss that why though in a minute, but really we're just going to focus on the story and where it's going. So we're just going to dive right into that. So the story, I'm going to start off actually not talking about this book, but actually talking about Gates of Azur. And Gates of Azur is the novel, or novella actually, 88-page novella that came out at the same, I think it was last week, alongside the box set, yeah. And I'm about halfway through it right now, and let me tell you, it is grim.
It follows Valden?
No, it follows Valdar, the Lord Celestin. Yeah, it follows his invasion of Akshi, and actually the lead up to, the build up to the invasion of the Realm of Fire, and also a little bit of what's been going on there. So it kind of sets our timeline for us. We kind of started off when we saw the first box set thinking that this Age of Sigmar was taking place just a little bit after the old world's destroyed. No. It's entire civilizations have risen and fallen in, like, I'm going to guess the tens of thousands of years.
More than a few days, yeah.
That's happened in between now and then. In fact, Sigmar just floated through the cosmos holding on to the old, like what was left of the old world, for millennia, like just disappeared and floated through space. And what he's done is he's basically taken that core of the old world and he's built the realm of heavens around it. So you can see this amazing diagram in the book, but Azurheim, which is the city that he's built, it looks like a huge orbital dock.
Yeah, like a space station.
Like a space station.
And you just have this flaming core, which is the old world.
It's the old world in the middle. It's the mantle of the old world, in the middle.
And it's a twin-tailed comet.
And it's a giant twin-tailed comet floating through space. And so what we get, the information we get about this, is that the realms aren't connected in like a physical sense. They are more like cosmological ideas. This is a fantasy universe that exists on like a cosmic and galactic scale. And how they're connected, I think you guys would be better off envisioning more like the movie Thor, where you see Asgard and these like light, these like light bridges, and like somehow like these realm gates are transporting you through space and time at like infinite speeds so you can arrive somewhere else. And they're not traditional planets either. Like Azurheim is literally a huge ring, like a halo ring around the burning core of a planet. And what's even more interesting is Azurheim has many different races living on it. It's not just the Azur, which is basically what's left of humanity, but there's also the elf and the Duardin as well, the dwarves, who are basically all living together in this one civilization on Azur. Now they live elsewhere too, but it seems as though refugees basically have all descended on this one
When
place.
they lost the battle, they all kind of, he took who he could back with him.
And locked them in Azure. And that's where these tens of thousands of years have gone by, is the rest of the mortal realms are completely overrun. And you actually, in Gates of Azure, you jump to, I'm not going to spoil too much, this is right at the very beginning of the book, but you jump to some survivors living in the realm of fire, and you realize just how bad it is. Like, they're literally being hunted because there's no food left in the fire realm at all. Like, there's no agriculture, there's nothing. It's just a huge burning plain of ash. The only food resource is other humans. And so, I know, and like whatever animals you could find and slaughter. So like the Goreblade, or was it the Goreblades? The Blood Reavers? The Blood Reavers, the Blood
Reavers, Marvel.
Are just, there's just packs of them hunting survivors, and they let other survivors go to like breed and multiply so they can hunt them for food. And then when they catch you, they either give you the option of joining them and becoming other cannibals, and that's how they reinforce their ranks, or they just, if you fight back or you won't do it, then they just eat you. And it's like really grim. Like, if that book looked a little bit like 90s kiddie to you when you looked at the cover, there is nothing kiddie about that story. Like in the first 10 pages, like rampant cannibalism, torture, and murder. Like, it is graphic, dark, graphic grimness. And so that kind of gives you the tone of what's happening here. The beginning of the Realmgate Wars, 7 realms have fallen to chaos. Like, they are gone. They are overrun by chaos right now. The Garon, the realm of life, is basically overrun by Nurgle.
There's a good picture
there's a great picture of that in the Rulebook.
It shows like how like these beautiful waterfalls are just turned into like just
pus and muck and it's just disgusting, basically.
It's pretty rough, yeah.
and whatever's there that can defend it is slumbering. And then the realm of fire is just overrun by Khorne, and that's why it's the Bloodbound that are basically the focus of the starter set. Is that this is almost like you're thinking of these as like a historical box set. These are the historical forces for this time in Age of Sigmar. So it's kind of interesting because it gives you more sort of insight into everything that's happened over this time. Like, they're all of these different gods, basically, like Nagash, Gorkamorka. It overviews them in here. Gorkamorka is the god of the orcs. Malandir and Tyrion, Alariel. Like, these gods found civilizations in their new realms. So whatever these new realms are, there's these huge civilizations that are founded after the old world's destroyed. And they rise and they fall. And there's another war against chaos that basically just invades them. Like, chaos gets interested again in whatever's going on in the mortal realms and destroys them. And so we're in a post-apocalyptic cosmic fantasy setting now. And so for millennia, what Sigmar's basically done is he's taken these fallen heroes, like the souls of these mortal heroes, and he's rebuilt them into the Stormcast Eternals, and they're his warriors. And so what's interesting is these guys kind of remember who they were, but they've spent lifetimes fighting wars against chaos, and some of them are the heroes that we knew from the old world. They don't know who they are, but they are.
And who's he? He locks. It's Grungy. He locks himself in a room and just. Was he given the gift of thunder or some kind of
he gives him basically the ability to throw like lightning comets.
Yeah,
and
it's really cool.
And what I think is really interesting is he's now making his legion out of the old heroes, and that gives you kind of a unique sort of like, it hasn't been done before, is these guys are revenants, but they're immortal. So you can almost think of them as like Sigmar's undead. Like, he's raising these guys back up over and over again, and that's where these Lord Relictors, like the guy in the box set, come from. Their whole thing is, if someone dies, he just forces them to come back to life. And these guys stagger back to their feet and they keep fighting. And so they're not spirits, they're not ghosts, they're not like animate armor, they're just these huge men that have basically been like built in Sigmar's image and are now these like war gods, basically. And they've spent like many lifetimes fighting against chaos.
Which gives them the training that,
that you would have.
It's impossible and immortal, right? Like, just thousands of more.
So regular human, Stormcast Eternal, it's these like lifetimes they've spent fighting. And so now that kind of leads us to where we are in this book. So there's, I'll have Chris go over this, but there's basically 2 realms and 8 battle plans. And each of the 2 major realms, I think, has 3 battle plans in them. So let's talk about what are those things? What are the battle plans?
Right, so the battle plans are really cool kind of scenarios, and they're built around, I don't want to say basic kind of classic principles of battles, but they are kind of archetypical kind of typical battles. So I'm going to kind of just throw one at you and just to give you an idea of the structure of what they look like. One that really stuck out to me You get some old favorites like Watchtower, and there's like The Last Stand, where you have like your classic group of guys in the middle, and they're surrounded by the enemy.
Right.
I'll just go through this one. So first off, Ash kind of touched on it earlier. The one thing that you might not like or like, depending on where you're sitting, is the army selection. And this, we were talking about how this is actually kind of different.
This is different.
This is different. So
The battle plan is slightly different from the main rules way of selecting an army. You don't select your army during deployment.
yeah, so you're not picking your war scrolls as you deploy based on what you see your opponent do. This actually says each player picks an army, and then they must decide who will be, depending on the mission, the ritualist, the disruptor in this particular one,
So whoever's trying
the attacker,
to
defender,
summon. Yep.
that sort of thing.
So that's interesting because that kind of reinforces the idea that you need to have a social contract. There's you and an opponent agreeing to what kind of game you're going to play. And we've talked about this because if you watched any of my previous Age of Sigmar videos, like my one this past week, I came up with a format that gave some structure to playing games that helped us to play a fairly balanced game. I played against some Tomb Kings, like one of the World That Was armies, with my Stormcast Eternals, and it really felt close. Like it felt like a balanced game. And it was just general principles that me and my opponent agreed upon. So it's nothing official, but what this seems to be implying, these battle plans, is just figure it out.
Yeah.
What kind of game do you want to play? Figure out a way to make it fair.
Army? Generally what I think what a lot of people are kind of settling on that feels right is number of wounds and number of war scrolls. It seems to be a really easy...
And some keywords too. You take X number of keywords.
Can be really helpful too. If you want to limit stuff like that, you can. It's super easy. I think that's why they put the keywords in there.
Yep.
Yeah, so...
Well, I think that's working for us. But what's interesting about this is actually kind of almost a return to very early versions of Warhammer. So a lot of very early versions of Warhammer weren't as concerned about fairness, and they were more concerned about telling a story. Yeah. And in fact, very early editions of Warhammer, even Warhammer 40k, the original edition of Warhammer 40k, had a game master. And you actually set out to tell a story, and there was a game master helping you to play he was helping you to pick your forces to play through and accomplish that narrative, basically. And even the Rogue Trader book did have a very rough, if you felt like you needed to assign a point system, here's how you do it, but it didn't work. It was really complicated, and
so
it didn't work. It was kind of a stab at a point system. The point system was kind of like I guess if you need this, you could do it, but for the most part, just pick what you want. And in fact, for a lot of them, there was a wacky thing where you'd roll on tables to see what your guys were armed with. So it's like I take my Space Marine commander, and he's got a knife and a web pistol. It's like,
where did he
I rolled him the D1000 table, and that's what he got. So what is interesting is this is a change because it does say pick your armies before you set out to do anything else. But because you know what the scenario is, just you and your opponent, I guess, agree on how you're going to do that.
Yeah, and I think another point on that picking an army or telling a story is if you think of any kind of historical battle, they weren't really adding up how fair the forces were.
Nope, no, they didn't care.
No, they weren't really too concerned about that.
This is true. So we've got pick your army. Then what happens?
So after you picked your army and you've kind of settled on how you want to do that, you got to decide who's going to be the attacker, who's going to be the defender. And this one, the ritual battle plan, it's the ritualist and the disruptor. So ritualist, basically, it tells you a little bit about each role. Side. Yeah, so the ritualist is trying to summon something or ascend or whatever you want to call it based on the type of army they are. And the disruptor's trying to stop them. So they're trying to smash their sacred artifacts before they can do
defile the altar, blow out the candles, whatever it is.
Smash with a hammer.
Yep, smash with a hammer. That's what I'm trying to do.
That's the Stormcast do.
That's what we do.
So they briefly outline your objectives, and what's really cool, I like, is every battle plan, each general gets a unique command ability that's added to their battle scroll.
So it's a tactic, basically, they can use. So
and you can use it or you don't have to.
Right, because command abilities what's interesting about command abilities, no matter how many heroes you take, only your general gets to use his command ability, right? And he gets to use it once per turn. And if he has a whole list to choose from, then you actually get, because you did it with your Mighty Lord of Khorne, you had a whole bunch of useful ones you could choose. Some were mobility, and then some were like hitting, and so you would switch between the mobility ones once you'd engage, the ones that are going to get you to cause damage. My Lord Celestin on his Dracoth, his command ability is not necessarily one that you're going to switch from, because it's either pick a unit within 12 and it's immune to battle shock, or just everybody within 24 is immune to battle shock. Mine kind of replaces which one I went to or not. So you don't necessarily opt for him, but if you take the Lord Celestin on foot, His is more offensive, and then he retains Inspiring Presence, which every general gets, to make somebody within 12 immune to it. But you're actually getting narrative command abilities, which is kind of neat just by playing a battle
like
plan.
for example, if you use him in this mission, and let's say you're the ritualist, maybe you're trying to protect your altar to Sigmar or something like that. You can pick D3 of your units within 12 inches of your character, add 1 to all your hit rolls, and subtract 1 from all your save rolls. So you basically become reckless for a turn. So you really need to kill stuff, right? And the Disruptor's command ability is basically I smash your artifact and win the game. So it's like a cool, gives you a chance to win, basically.
That's awesome. So and you get a major victory. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Something else we should mention is it actually says specifically in here, ignore all the other scenario and objective stuff from the rules. So you would not get to do a what's it called? A sudden death. It replaces your sudden death. You gain a sudden death.
Some of them say use them with this change, or don't look at them at all. We have a new victory condition. So the victory conditions are very clear, which is really cool. And there's some of them have major and minor victory conditions, and some of them just have major or major conditions of winning. And the next thing I talk about is the battlefield. So it actually gives you a unique deployment and setup. And sometimes, depending on the battle plan, there's unique terrain to use for that particular one. So obviously, with this one, you need some sort of artifact to represent.
Altar or something like that.
Yeah, anything cool you can think of.
Looks like they're using the Chaos Shrine.
This one is the Arcane Runes or Shrine or whatever. It works well for if you're doing the Chaos.
Some kind of ritual.
Yeah, and this one actually says for setup, don't use the setup instructions in Age of Sigmar, do this instead. So you actually sometimes set up all the attacker's models first, and then the defender gets to deploy or whatever. And
it gives you unique setup options too, that's interesting.
What's cool about this one is because the victory condition is for the defenders that are guarding the altar, they can either kill the attacker's general to stop the attack, or they roll a die every turn, and they keep accumulating that die roll every turn. They're trying to get to 20. So that's just basically you're on a clock. You have to
you're
stop
counting down to the ritual.
The
basically
ritual is
going.
like happening, and you have to try to shut it down.
That's awesome.
Which is really cool. So it kind of puts a really. I don't know if you ever played Space Hulk, but it has that cool time element where you're really
another points free game, by the way.
Yeah.
Space Hulk. Yeah. Use whatever the blips tell you to use, and then the other side is you've got some Marines, and that's pretty much it.
So the battle plans. There's only 8 of them, but they really have a lot of cool uniqueness to each one. So I can already see these being used for events. Lords of War tournament weekend we're going to be doing. We're going to probably pick 4 of these to use
and advertise them.
And I'll let you guys know as soon as possible which ones, so you can actually prepare for that.
I think it's a great idea because it's interesting the sort of format for these, because they change like how you deploy. They change your army selection a little bit. So for instance, there's one of them that rewards you for having a totem. And my Stormcast Eternals don't actually have access to a totem yet. There's nobody that carries a totem. There's no Battle Center Bear. But because it's this edition, I can just make warbands whatever I want. If I wanted to bring some Dwarden, I can, which means I could paint some dwarves and just have some dwarves with my guys, and I can have a dwarf with a banner, and I can have a bits or piece. So advertising, I think for doing an event, especially advertising the scenarios in advance, and then having whatever your format is, whatever people are going to bring to play those events, gives you some forewarning of what you're going to be doing and how.
And that's just another way of picking your army, right? Like even if you pick your army, a couple weeks before you go to an event to play, you're still doing that pick your army part of the.
Malifaux and Infinity both do that. Actually, they both advertise prior to the actual day the scenarios that'll be in play, and that's actually a big key component to their sort of like competitive format. So I think that's interesting. That's a good, if you guys are going to do that, I think that's a neat choice.
And you wanted to talk about
the realm rules,
which is really cool. So
you set your story, or so you set your games in a realm, and it's very clear you don't have to. This is all just stuff that you can choose to do. But if you're going to do the sort of the historic refight of this invasion, here's the rules for the Realm of Fire and the Realm of Life. So my favorite part about the Realm of Fire ones is that they give you keywords to key off of. So if you have chaos in your unit description as your general, then you can try to use the Legions of Chaos, and you roll a dice on a table. On a 1, you turn to a spawn. You just take D3 mortal wounds, and it just gets progressively better. If you get a 6, you get a Chaos Legion. The Chaos Gods send D6 units of demons. Just any demons, anything with a demon keyword. But you can't have more than 1 hero or more than 1 monster. So literally, you just get a new army. It just shows up. Now there's some restrictions that obviously all units have to be set up more than 9 inches away from the opponent. And for the order one, it gets basically and destruction. Because order and destruction can both
Orcs
do it. You get to summon Stormcast Eternals, and you just get basically for whatever turn it is. The more dire your need is, the more Stormcast Eternals Sigmar is going to send you. Yeah. So you take the number of dice equal to the turn number, and for each one that you roll, it's a 3+. You can just set up any unit of Stormcast Eternals at all that you want. Again, with no more than one hero, no more than one monster. So I think that's really cool thematically because the Chaos Guys is just chance. It's whatever the fickle whims of the Chaos Gods are. And for the Stormcast, it's whatever, however dire your need is, that's what they send you basically. It's based on how much you need it.
And it's cool because both armies get it, right? So you have like these cool things that could happen and show up at different times, which is neat.
There's some environmental stuff. So there's the Reign of Sigmar, which is if things are getting bad and you have an order general, you can try and pray for the rain. There's also the Fireball spell. So guys who are wizards will automatically know the Fireball spell. Like you just gain an extra spell basically.
You're fighting in the realm of fire and you're a wizard. You just picked up a spell, baby.
Well, you can just imagine like telekinesing
There's a lot of fire around here.
They're just telekinesing some lava and like just throwing it at somebody. You know what I mean? Like using the environment as a weapon or whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
There's a lot of reasons for it to be cool, and then there's additional terrain too. So
geysers of boiling
blood, clouds of smoke and steam, cool. And then you've got flaming missile weapons too. So like any of your missile weapons can be burning, which is
if you shoot over 12 inches, so they pick up
steam
and gain fire. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, because as you shoot them, they basically the air is so hot they're lighting on fire and they become more dangerous as they go. So it's interesting. This is just one example. The Realm of Life ones are really similar. They give you additional options for your general, additional options for the train and for the scenery and stuff like that. But it just kind of flavors the game. So it gives you more ways to kind of make, I don't want to say wacky stuff, but like to make the game feel like it's taking place in X or Y realm.
I know for gaming groups, like campaigns can be some of the most fun you can have in the hobby.
Yeah, and playing linked games.
Just to not have to come up with the stuff on your own and to have a cool extra flavor for just, if you're doing a map or something, it can be a lot of fun.
It feels a lot like the 40K book. Was it Stormclaw? Hour of the Wolf. There's the ones that came with Stormclaw. I think it was Hour of the Wolf was the ones that came with Stormclaw.
Yeah, the ones that were around. They released the book before.
There's the campaign. There's like a campaign book, the box set, and it would all go together. This feels a lot like that release. It feels like Games Workshop was piloting this idea with those 40K releases, and this is a fantasy version of that. So you've got like a cool narrative to play through. You've got model specific stuff for that narrative. They've given you reasons to include other stuff. So there aren't any scrolls for the Nurgle stuff, but obviously all the war scrolls for Chaos are available online for free. But there is a whole new set of war scrolls for I think 4 new units for the Stormcast Eternals, and then it looks like 5 new units. Well, slight alterations, but 5 new units for the Sylvaneth, which is the Dryads and stuff like that. So you want to talk about that?
Lords in those models as well, yeah.
We'll go on that, I guess.
They actually changed the names of some of them too.
They did the Tree Lords, not Tree Men.
Which is pretty neat. So.
Do you want to start with them or you want to start with the Stormcast stuff?
Let's start with the Stormcast stuff. That's kind of your gravy.
Cool. I'll do that then. So there's also some spoilers. If you look in the pictures, there's not rules for them yet, but there's rules for variant armaments for the Retributors. And there's rules for some other cool stuff. But there's 4 hero types now for the Stormcast Eternals. We've seen the Lord Celestin this week. He just came out on foot. He's got his cool additional abilities. A new command ability called Furious Retribution. This model is your general. Then until your next hero phase, you can add 1 to the result of any hit rolls in combat for a guess within 9. So if you're laying low the Tyrant and you've got him within 9 inches, you can command him to hit on 2s, which is pretty amazing. Then you've got the Green Lantern. I'm just gonna call him Green Lantern because he's got a lantern. But he's the new hero type that I guess folks hadn't seen yet. The Lord Castellant. I think he was spelled online, but there's rules from in here. And he has a warding lantern, and basically it's a bit like what the Lord Relictors unit does, but he doesn't have to pray for it. It just does a storm within 12 inches of him. If a cat unit is chosen to be struck by, it takes D3 mortal wounds. It takes a mortal wound. If it's Chaos Demon, it takes D3 mortal wounds. If a Stormcast Eternal unit is chosen, you get to add 1 to all your save rolls. Ooh. In addition, every time you roll a 7 for a save, a model unit can heal a wound. So not only do they get +1 armor save, but anytime you roll a 6 to save, you get basically a wound healed on that unit too.
Roll a 7.
Pretty awesome.
My brain exploded when I read that the first time. You can't get a 7.
You can't get a 7. Actually, you can. In particularly high values of 6, you are now rolling a 7.
Right.
So those are the heroes. Now the Lord Castellan looks like he comes packed with the Griffhound, which is a little like Griffin-y dude with a spiked collar. And he can be taken as a war scroll on his own. It doesn't look like he's actually a part of the Lord Castellan, even though he's pictured with him. And then his war scroll, it's any number of Griffhounds. I don't know if they're packed together, if you can buy them individually. I'm hoping you buy them individually because he's a really cool looking model. And he's just got Loyal Companion rule, so Griffhound makes 4 attacks with Beacon Claws. He doubles his attacks if he's within 3 inches of the Lord Castellan, so he's kind of like a unit attachment almost. And then he's got some cool kind of like movement stuff. After he makes his attacks, he can move d6 inches. And if an enemy unit set up within 10 inches of this unit, roll 2 dice. Any unit within that many inches of the Griffhound is alerted to the enemy's presence and can attack once its weapon's in the shooting phase. For free, just immediately. Like if you show up, basically if you deep strike, if you have a rule that places you within 10 inches of him, within 10 inches of him, roll 2 dice. And any units within 2d6 of him can basically shoot that unit for free. So it's a bit like, what was the old Inquisition unit? There was an Inquisitor Warband guy that used to let you do that for deep striking units.
Codius.
No, it was one of the guys in his warband. I think it was a...
Oh, it could have been the Serval Skull or something.
Something like that. Yeah, it was either the Serval Skull.
You got to shoot out a
But you got to shoot out Turn Order, yeah. And people used to park them next to Warlord Titans.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was just sort of Warhound Titan. Some would deep strike in and he'd just be like, hey, Warlord Titan! I mean, like, bzzz, just kill it.
Delete.
Oh, 40k. Anyway, so now the other new units are Judicators. Judicators are the bow guys, which also have machine guns. They have bolt storm crossbows.
They have some serious range. I don't know if you guys have gone over a lot of the war scrolls in the game, but 24 inches is not the same 24 inches it used to be.
No,
most of
not considering you can move and fire anything.
Most longbows are like 20. So that's some serious range.
And because add 5 to all those ranges, because there's no penalty for moving and firing. Right, yeah. So you just move. You're shooting 29 inches with your bows. You're shooting 17 inches with the, and you can pretty much everything. You're shooting 17 inches with the rapid fire ones. These have been spelled online, so I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on them. But basically, much like the Liberators, there's a special weapon in the unit, and then there's a bunch of additional guns you can arm them with. And there's the Liberators, which we actually have right here. This is the new Liberator block set. And they've got Warblades, Grand Hammers, Grand Blades, or Warhammers. So now there's some variant options to arm them differently from in the block set. So I can keep arming them with hammers and shields, or swords and shields. There's actually functionally no difference. They have the exact same rules if they have a Warblade. Oh no, sorry, they have slightly different rules.
They flip their
hits and wounds. That's right.
It's a common thing in a lot of the war scrolls is hand weapons like swords tend to hit easier, and then like hammers and stuff tend to wound easier.
Now what's interesting is you don't get the paired weapons rule though apparently if you give them one of each. And I'm not actually sure what happens then, because an extra weapon allows a Liberator to feint and parry, creating openings for their opponent's guard. You can reroll hits of 1 for models armed with more than one Warhammer or Warblade. So if you have more than one of each, you can reroll hits of 1. If I give them one of each, I just get 4 attacks. I can't figure out if that's the case or not, but I'm pretty sure my guys get 4 attacks.
Paired Warblades or paired Warhammers. No, I think it says in the description.
Because I thought I saw something modeled with one of each, and I was going to be like, I'm going to take one of each. Ding, 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 4 attacks. Hey, man, I'm gonna ask. I got to find out. I'm playing these guys. I just want to know. Now, the one thing you should know is you only get one of each of the specialty weapons on the frame. So you get 1 Warhammer and 1 Warblade. So if you were opting to go 2 and 2 or whatever, I was looking to actually add both of my units. Warhammers, you're going to want to buy a second box. So you only get 1 of each in the box.
And you get one for every 5 models, I think?
1 for every 5. So they basically give you exactly, they don't give you what you would want or what you would need. Well, if you do one of each, actually you can.
If you're trying to juice your starter set up.
Juice your starter set. So if I bought this and you would still, if you wanted to make both units like 10 guys, you could get 2 swords and 2 hammers, but you couldn't get 4 of any one thing, basically. Which is what I'm going to be doing to juice up my starter set. And that's pretty much it for the new units for the whatchamacallits, the Stormcast. Now what they do also get though is a new battalion formation. They're the only ones that get a new one actually, except for the Sylvaneth, because they're all new. They get the Heroes of the Host, which is 1 of each hero type. Now they get Lord Celestin or Lord Celestin on Greykoth can be part of it. So if you want your Lord Celestin on Greykoth to be part of the Thunderstrike Brotherhood still, you can have that. You can have this on top of it. Then a Lord Relictor, a Lord Castellan, and 0 to 1 units of Griffin Hounds. You basically get +1, add 1 bravery to all friendly Stormcast Eternal units within 6 inches of one of these heroes, and a wave of power. If all 3 heroes from this battalion are within 3 inches of each other during your opponent's hero phase, they can summon an arcing wave of power to drive their foes back. If they do so, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 3 of a hero from this battalion. On a 4 or more, that enemy unit suffers a mortal wound and must retreat. So you're forced to retreat in the following movement phase. You just go, knock everybody down. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Gandalf everybody to the ground. But the forced retreat is huge. I don't think that seems as powerful when I read it as I'm now realizing it is, because it means you can end combats. You can just push guys into combat with you if you don't like that combat and how the combat's going. You can basically paralyze the unit for a turn, because if they're forced to retreat, they can't shoot. Yeah. They can't charge in the following turn.
So you're clearing the way for yourself, but you don't have to retreat.
Exactly. So now you get to charge and you get to shoot. So what you're basically doing with that power is you're buying a complete turn of these guys can't do anything. Yeah. And on a 4+, that unit's basically paralyzed for a round.
Pretty fantastic.
If you're going first during a turn, that ability is crazy. Yeah. That allows you to paralyze on a 4+ monsters, heroes, any unit, and they take a mortal wound on top of that too. So that's a really cool thing. Now, how does that mesh with the Thunderstrike Brotherhood? I don't really know, because one's going to be deployed off table and then arrive. The other one's just going to be like 3 guys standing on the table with a bunch of like Griff Hounds. But I don't know. I'll build it eventually. Like, I'll give it a try for sure.
To play, I guess. Yeah, just trying different things.
But what I would see is when I start actually building Judicators, these are the guys that hang out with my shooting troops.
Yes.
Right. So now you're going to try and charge my shooting troops, and I just go, no, you didn't, and I push you back.
Oh, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't. And they just go and keep shooting with like crossbows.
Oh, man, that's rough.
So it seems like if I was going to use this War Scroll Battalion, it would probably be in conjunction with my shooting troops, because there's no shooting troops from the Stormcast that are actually part of the Brotherhood anyway. Yeah. So when I do start adding them, that's when I would make this Battalion War Scroll as a way to basically safeguard those guys. Now,
too, is 2 really unique, different kind of builds too.
Absolutely. Now, the one thing I will say though is if we are going to be using wounds as a kind of balancing factor, these guys have like 6 wounds each. So we're talking about 10, 11. Yeah, and then I have to have a Lord Relictor too, don't I? I have to have 2 Lord Relictors. So my Lord Relictor would come out of my Thunderstrike Brotherhood and go into this one, which is interesting. Or I'd have to have 2 Lord Relictors. But it's a whole bunch of heroes. Yeah. So yeah, you'd have a whole bunch of stuff basically that would accompany your shooting troops. So then let's talk about the Guardians of the Sylvaneth and the Deepwood Guardians, because there's a formation for them too.
Yeah, so the tree men are now called Tree Lords. There's a couple different versions of them. You got the Tree Lord Ancient, and he's kind of your like magic-y guy. He can cast a spell. One of the spells he knows is Awakening the Wood. He can pick a Wildwood. It's been 24 inches of them, and enemy units within 3 suffer D3 mortal wounds. That could be pretty nasty. I'll get to why that's so bad in a minute. And he's... I don't know if you guys have read any of the Monster War Scrolls, but monsters are serious business.
Oh, yeah.
Sigmar. Like, 12 wounds. What's really, really strong about the Tree Lords is they have a 3+ save. And you don't see a lot of 3+ saves. 2+
save if you're staying in a wood. Because as soon as you're in terrain,
Come get me, bro.
That's right. Come get me, bro. Let's do this. Okay, right. I have 12 2+ save wounds.
On top of that, he can teleport between forests, which is really cool. He's got a way to auto-kill models with Impale.
Yep.
And he has a ton of attacks. So he's got one big Doom Tendril attack that does D6 damage, so similar to old Tree Whack with Durthu. And he's got what looks like 3-inch attacks. They hit on 3s, wound on 3s, do another D6 damage. So we're looking at, what's that?
It's up to 24 wounds.
So far,
24 wounds you could just throw 24 wounds.
And then he's got that Impaling Talons attack that does, what's that?
It's the one with Impale. It's the one that actually auto kills.
So it only does 1 damage, but it has Rend 2.
Yeah.
And if you roll
less than your wounds,
you dead.
Equal to your wounds, yeah. You roll dice, it's D6 -1, and if it's higher than your wounds, then you're just dead. You're just
dead, bro.
He just stabs you through the heart.
So he's nasty, very nasty.
And that's the Ancient. There's also just the regular Tree Lord.
And he's even more kind of beat sticky because he doesn't have the wizard abilities. He doesn't have the spells. So, that guy, by the way, can Arcane Bolt you still, too. He has spells.
He can Ground Shaking Stomp every turn. I think both of them can, can't they? Yep. So within 3 inches on a 4+, you're -1 to hit.
That's awesome.
Because you do a big earthquake.
Yeah, very, very tough, very hardy. So this guy's got 5 attacks. Oh, this guy's got actually a missile attack, which is really cool. So instead of being a mage, he has a 12-inch, 5 attacks, 3s to wounds. Hits on 2s as long as he's full wounds. What's really cool about monsters too is they start off really strong, but if you start picking wounds off them, they kind of weaken as the battle goes on.
It's not 100-0 like it used to be. So like in the previous edition, until you had your last wound gone, you're just as good as you always. Like, you're always as good as you always were. I think the only thing that didn't do that was the old steam tank. That's the only thing that actually had like any kind of attrition against it. Everything else is just like you're operating at 100% no matter how many wounds you have.
Yeah, so that's kind of a cool thing. So strategically, if you're thinking about how to deal with monsters, some missile weapons, so you can kind of pluck a couple wounds off. It'll go a long way to kind of knowing their effects a bit more. So that's pretty similar. They can also teleport between the forests. And then you got the branch wraith. Now the branch wraith's a pretty...
She's key.
She's a pretty key.
You gotta have her.
Yeah.
You kind of have to have her.
She is a wizard, just like before. And she can summon dryads. That's wow. Think about that for a second.
7+.
She makes dryads. So it's a 7 to go off. So it's pretty 50-50. So in Age of Sigmar, you roll 2 dice. And evil or beat.
Terrain and stuff can affect that too, because if you get an arcane terrain, all of it's a +1 to cast.
+1 to cast.
There's a bunch of things you can do to augment that if you get a good
And you actually roll for terrain at the start, so you never know. You can kind of work around that strategy. And then you get 2d6 dryads if you succeed within 12 inches of the branch wraith, which is pretty nice. She's 5 wounds, 5+ saves. She's not the tankiest hero, but she's kind of a nice summoner.
But she's just like the dryads, -1 to hit if she's in a wood, and then on top of that, +1 armor save. So you have to. It's interesting. We'll get there, but even though their stats seem fairly mediocre, you kind of have to take stuff into account.
So the dryads, you look at their stats. They're not bad. They're 2 attacks, 4s and 4s. They do 1 damage, but then they have the -1 to hit, like the branch wraith, and they have. Remember that when you're in cover, you get +1 armor, so you're thinking, okay, maybe that'd be 4+. And then when you take 12 or more, you can add 1 to their save roll. So if you have 12 dryads, they have a 4+ save to start.
You can also Enrapturing Song them, so any one unit within 3 of you, you get +1 to hit during your combat phase. So you actually hit on 3s.
3s, that's nice.
And anytime, it's interesting, if we do use wounds as a rubric for what you can bring, anytime you have a unit with more than 1 attack that's 1 wound, it's really valuable. Because what you're talking about is your wounded potential damage output becomes way higher all of a sudden, which is pretty huge.
And movement 7, that's actually quite good. Like
I didn't see that.
That's really fast.
They're all movement 7. Holy moly! Even the trees are movement 6.
So we have a war scroll here for Sylvaneth Wildwood.
So trees,
trees, baby.
You can just bring trees. You can bring 2 or more Citadel Woods. So that's interesting because Wood Elves got free forests forever, but there's a big reason to do that.
So what does this do that's so different? It has the Wildwood rule. So basically, if you're running or charging through this and you don't have the Sylvaneth monster or hero keyword, on a roll of 1, you're just
dead.
You're dead. You're dead. Like not a wound. You're dead.
It doesn't matter how but it doesn't work on heroes and monsters. You're not gonna lose your giant going through there. You're not gonna lose your lord.
That's not fun, right? To lose your big monster to something
but
like that.
To lose, I had that in the last game I played. Oof. There was
you feel the bravery check, right?
No. My Stormcast Liberators charged. It was one of the scenery pieces that had rolled for that same rule. Where it was dangerous, basically, or deadly, or whatever it is. And he had his Screaming Scope catapult deployed in it, and I rolled my charged in, got there no problem. Rolled trip 1s for my dangerous terrain test. Lost 6 wounds with Liberators. All of a sudden I had 2 Liberators left fighting this crew, and the crew's just like, well, no problem. Now we'll just fight you guys all day. And it was like way harder because I went from definitely murdering this thing in 1 round to we're on the back foot. It was pretty dangerous.
Getting beat up by skeleton crew.
so now imagine that because it's 2 or more as 1 scroll, your entire army can just be living in woods. All the time. And not only that, if a spell is successfully cast within 6 of you on a 5+, every enemy unit within 1 inch of the woods takes D3 mortal wounds. They just freak out and start attacking things.
So you're summoning dryads and they're taking damage.
They're like your rhinos, and you can summon more guys out of them too. Just
and teleport between them?
And teleport between them, It's interesting. This whole set of war scrolls seems to revolve around a whole bunch of order operation and unit placement stuff.
It seems it's cool. It's very synergistic. Very order operation, like you said. It sounds really fun to play. A true kind of ambush army.
We saved the best for last though, because we get to the Guardians of Deepwood.
This is where
This is where the icing is.
So to actually take this and get the benefits, you need 3 Tree Lords and or Tree Lord Ancients, so 3 monster guys.
Only the Ancient's a hero, so if you are in some way limited for like monsters and stuff like that, then it's just him.
I think for like event structure and stuff, 2 units Dryads and 2 Wildwoods. The Wildwood's actually part of the War Scroll.
But it's 2 scrolls of Wildwoods, so right? So you're talking about minimum 4 forests here. So what do you get for that?
So you get the ability to actually deep strike your units.
Your everyone.
Sort of like the Stormcast Eternals.
That's right.
The only caveat is they have to show up within 3 inches of the Wildwood. Oh no.
But now the Wildwoods.
So many.
This is the second bit. The Wildwoods.
So normally if you take the War Scroll Wildwood, you'd have to deploy like units in your deployment zone. However, you get the Sacred Groves rule, which lets you set up on the battlefield the pieces of terrain after the other pieces of terrain are set up.
That's right. Anywhere you want. Anywhere on the table. So this is a true ambushing army. What I think is really neat about it is it's operating like guerrilla tactics, and then it's using those scenery features as best they can to actually like try and accomplish the mission. So when you read through this section about Guran and the war going on in Guran and the Stormcast were there, and then also the fight between Nurgle and the Sylvaneth, this has been going on for a long time, right? Like the Sylvaneth are fighting a guerrilla war. And what's really cool is these rules show there's no elves left there, right? It's just these tree spirits basically that are fighting a losing attrition war in their post-apocalyptic world. And that's all they have is they have these like guerrilla tactics to try and fight these Nurgle like chaos legions with. I think that is so cool that like the storyline that's taking place in Guran in that realm, in the Realm Gate Wars, is really reflected both in the rules for the models and also the rules for that.
And they play
formation.
really different than kind of like summoning Dryad is like a very new concept.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
You don't think of them traditionally as like kind of like a summoning army.
No, exactly. Yeah. They're not a spawning army basically, but now they can be. And what's really cool is this, if you look at the formation, it's exactly that box set that they came out with that was the 3 tree men and a bunch of Dryads.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, you just buy some woods and you got it. So if anyone still has that box set in stock, that box set, I don't know if it's still available, but I've seen them in a couple stores, and that would be the one that I would just buy and then do. So like if you were looking to do that box set I think is a huge value savings too, isn't it? It saves you a bunch of money.
Like $100 or something.
Yeah, it's usually a free tree man, I think, something like that. And that kind of takes us to the conclusion of our review of Age of Sigmar. So I think you can take that for what you will. I'm excited to play through the missions. I'm actually going to be playing Age of Sigmar a whole bunch the next 2 weeks, and I'm going to use all of these missions. I'm going to contact the people that I'm talking to, and we'll talk about what mission we want to play. So when they bring in their forces and we agree upon a game size, we'll try and actually do the story. So you guys can look forward to that. As my Age of Sigmar games come out on Mondays, you'll be able to see us actually play with these rules. And I think that's it. My experience so far with Age of Sigmar, the number of games that I've had in it, has been that it really does require you to have a long conversation with your opponent about how you want to play the game. And I'm lucky in that most of the people that I play the game with like to push around toy soldiers and hang out, and that's why we do it. Really, we're not in it for accolades or trophies or awards. We do it to go and hang out with friends. And so that's my caveat emptor this whole experience, and my excitement level about this is that it just gives me more cool reasons to do that. And of course, your mileage may vary. So I think that's just the most honest and objective way that we can look at the book. It has a bunch of rules in it. They seem to have a lot of synergy. I think that as we go forward, of course, Chris is planning a major Warhammer tournament right now. We have about 5 weeks till the event kicks. Unfortunately, we've had to play a bit of a waiting game with the release schedule. But now we have the book in our hands. We've kind of come to some conclusions. We will be using 4 scenarios out of this book. Cool. And we will be deciding on a wounds and war skull cap. So right now it's looking like it's going to be, by the time you'll watch this video, we'll have it up on our website. 80 wounds cap for your whole army. 6 to 8 war scrolls you deploy. 1 to 3 hero war scrolls. 0 to 2 monster war scrolls. And up to 25 wounds per war scroll, just to kind of limit that a little bit. And I think our plan is we're going to talk about it in the podcast, aren't we? We're going to do a podcast. Yeah, we're going to do a podcast for Lords of War. Okay. So if you haven't checked those out yet, we've done some alpha ones, but we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit to Age of Sigmar just to kind of. We're covering all the games I think that'll be at Lords of War weekend. So this will be the Age of Sigmar one. August 15th and 16th, and you can still buy tickets. But I think the key thing is just it's going to be a fun event, and you can bring anything. That's the cool thing. Yeah, like, everything's cool, everything's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's got me thinking about my Tomb Kings and what to do with them. And
I think I'm going to paint my Hephaestian Duarden that are hanging out in Azure, making all the armor for my my Stormcast Eternals. So it's gonna be some Smiths,
that's super cool.
Some Duarden getting painted up on round basis because I have a whole bunch of Duarden still to paint. And I think that's it for me. What this feels like, and of course I have a very old guy opinion of Warhammer, is this feels a lot like the earlier, 3rd, 4th edition of Warhammer, where you're making warbands, and your warbands were aligned with order and destruction, and you and your opponent were getting together to play a game. I mean, and we're talking about 20 years ago when, actually more than 20 years ago, like 25, almost 25 years ago probably now, I was like 10, and that's what I was reading in White Dwarf. That's how people played this game, right? Like, this game was about, oh gosh, there's so many great names, but like, the Macbeth scenarios that were in White Dwarf, where like there's literally a guy named Macbeth, and his whole thing is that he's an evil warrior guy, and you got to go stop Macbeth. Actually, he might have been the hero in that one, actually. But it was stories. It was stories in White Dwarf and scenarios and things are going to happen. The fight at Maison Tal, which is like repeated over and over and over again. There's this shrine, this sort of chapel called the Maison Tal, which was dedicated to Tal, and that narrative game must have happened in White Dwarf like 3 or 4 times over the course of it being printed.
And what about all the every summer the campaign books, the narrative driven scenarios?
Well, that was even later. That was once there was points and there was no GM in the game anymore and stuff like that. But this feels like that to me. The idea that I can just make whatever I want and build a story around it, and then they'll give me some structure for my games, but they're not going to so much worry about what I bring to the game as how much action and interesting story develops during the game. And that seems to be the focus of this book. So again, if that's not what you're looking for, then, and you're still kind of holding up hope for point casts and stuff, it doesn't seem to be in the book. That doesn't seem to be the way it's going. I think this has been written with the idea that we can be trusted to figure that stuff out for ourselves. Because to be honest, and we talked about this earlier, people are already doing that. Like the major world, the FIFA of Warhammer used a modified version of fantasy.
A lot of people that I talk to consider 8th edition as like the shining example of like a balanced rule set, and all the codexes were excellent, and still you had all kinds of different groups that were making their own systems, comping things and whatever. And at the end of the day, it's like
they're just letting us do that completely.
Just do it.
So I think that's it. If that was already happening, now we just get to do it however we want. So I'm completely comfortable with that. I feel like people are gonna step in and either fill up that void and make up a system for some kind of organized play, or not. But Games Workshop's in this book basically just said have fun with your toy soldiers, and I'm excited to go do that. So I hope you guys enjoyed our Age of Sigmar, the book review, and our just sort of like discussion of what was in it and what was new and exciting. So once again, I think this is going to be the last launch day video I do for Age of Sigmar for a bit until something big like this comes out. Just because obviously Chris and I didn't get a lot of sleep doing these for like the last 3 weeks. Do I look tired? Because I feel tired. Well, I have 2 small children too as well. So when I'm not sleeping, I'm chasing them, which is exciting. And Chris is running a store. Maybe. So this was a good end note for us. And what I'm going to focus on now is just playing games with these scenarios.
Fun, man.
And I'll be doing coverage of Lords of War weekend too. So if you guys interested in seeing how that event goes with whatever format we come up with,
hey guys, pop by the shop and talk to us about it.
Or in the comments too. We'll read the comments.
Man. It's cool. Come tell us what you like about it and how you'd like to play, and we'll go from there.
We'll figure it out. I'll put a link to the podcast in this video as well once it's gone up, and in the video description, so if you guys want to hear our discussion of how we're going to come up with a format, or how you guys are going to come up with a format. It's not my event. I'll just be there doing coverage. But obviously, I can't not share my opinions. You can listen as if only. I don't keep you around because you're pretty, Ash. So we'll do more Age of Sigmar stuff probably on Monday, and you'll get to see that game then. Until then, guys, thanks for watching. Happy Wargaming.
Thank you, guys.